All right, let's talk about pediatric nursing safety. We're going to build a mental map that lets you, in a way, see the future. Because if you can understand a child's development, you can actually anticipate the risks that come with each new stage and stop injuries before they even have a chance to happen.
So let's get right into it. The single most important concept in pediatrics is this: a child's developmental stage dictates, well, everything. It's the playbook. It tells you how they think, what they're afraid of, and most importantly, how they're most likely to get hurt. Your job isn't just to react, it's to use this playbook to stay one step ahead.
So here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the core rules of peds nursing, then we'll dive into that critical newborn transition. After that, we'll cover infancy, the, let's call it, magic and mayhem of toddlers and preschoolers, and then the big paradox of adolescence. And we'll wrap it all up with a high-yield recap to make sure it all sticks. Okay, first things first, let's look at the big picture. Your role as a nurse is a moving target. Think about it. With an infant, you are the primary hands-on caregiver. But by the time that same kid is a teenager, you've become more of a consultant, an advocate. Understanding that your role has to shift is absolutely key. Now for probably the most dramatic transition a human being ever makes, the first 24 hours of life. A newborn goes from this warm, quiet, fluid-filled world where the placenta does everything for them to a cold, loud, air-filled world where they have to do it all themselves. So our priorities are simple, and they are urgent: airway and warmth. So why is warmth so high on the list? Because of a really dangerous enemy called cold stress. You see, a newborn can't shiver to get warm like we do. Instead, their body kicks into this metabolic overdrive, just burning through precious fuel, oxygen, and glucose to maintain their temperature. This isn't just a little inefficient, it is a life-threatening problem. And here's that dangerous chain reaction. It all starts with that cold exposure. That triggers a massive increase in their metabolism. That, in turn, burns up their oxygen and glucose supply at a totally alarming rate. And what's the result? Hypoxia, not enough oxygen, and hypoglycemia, not enough blood sugar. A cold baby very quickly becomes a baby who can't breathe. It's that direct. So how do we know if they're handling this huge transition? We use the APGAR score. The easiest way to think about it is like a traffic light for your actions. A score of 7 to 10, that's a green light. You're good to go with routine care. 4 to 6, that's a yellow light. Slow down, be cautious, stimulate them, maybe give them a little oxygen. But a score of 0 to 3, that's a red light. You stop everything and you begin full resuscitation. It's that clear. Okay, let's move into the first year of life. This whole stage is defined by two things: explosive physical growth and a developing mind that's starting to grasp a huge new concept: object permanence. That's the idea that things still exist even when you can't see them. This new understanding drives them to explore everything, which is why our focus has to be on the two things that fuel and protect them: nutrition and safe sleep. Just look at the sheer speed of this growth. Tripling their birth weight in 1 year, that is an absolutely incredible metabolic feat. And this is why nutrition isn't just about feeling full, it's the literal building block for every single cell in their rapidly growing body. And because that growth is so critical, the rules for nutrition are non-negotiable. No cow's milk before 1 year. Their little kidneys just can't handle that protein load, and it can cause iron deficiency anemia. No solid foods before 6 months. Their GI tract is not ready, and it increases their allergy risk. No water or juice. It just fills their stomach without any calories, and absolutely, under no circumstances, no cereal in the bottle. That's a major aspiration risk. The main takeaway here is simple: breast milk or formula only for the first 6 months, period. Now, when it comes to sleep, the message is just as clear, and it has saved countless lives. Back to sleep, always, on a firm mattress in a crib that is completely empty. No pillows, no blankets, no bumper pads, no cute stuffed animals. All of those things are suffocation hazards, plain and simple. And now we enter the phase of magic and mayhem. From ages 1 to 5, a child's mobility and curiosity just explode, but their ability to understand danger is practically zero. So our focus here shifts dramatically to injury prevention. Let's break this stage down because they're pretty different. A toddler, over on the left, is all about autonomy. Their entire world revolves around mine and no as they fight for control. But the preschooler on the right, they're developing initiative. They aren't just saying, I can do it. They're saying, I can make a plan and then do it. They're moving from simple control to creative action. And you can see this exact same difference in how they play. Toddlers do what we call parallel play. They'll sit right next to each other in a sandbox, but they're in their own separate little worlds. Preschoolers, on the other hand, start to do associative play. They're actually playing together, sharing toys and making up loose games.
Now, this reveals a fascinating and absolutely critical concept: magical thinking. A preschooler genuinely believes their thoughts can cause things to happen in the real world. So when they break an arm, they might actually connect it to not cleaning their room, seeing the injury as a punishment for being bad. It is your job to explicitly break that connection. You have to tell them, this was an accident. It is not your fault.
So given their magical thinking and their boundless curiosity, the top safety risks are pretty stark. Poisoning is number one, because their main way of exploring the world is with their mouth. Drowning is another huge risk. They're top-heavy and they are fascinated by water. And always remember, their greatest fear is bodily harm, which, as we just saw, they often think is a punishment. Now, as they grow into the school-age years, say from 6 to 12, their world expands. The core conflict becomes industry versus inferiority. They want to achieve things, be good at stuff, and with that, the safety risks shift from dangers in the home to accidents outside, related to things like bikes, sports, and playing with friends. So, as that magical thinking starts to fade, a totally different kind of flawed logic takes over in adolescence. This stage is a complete paradox. Cognitively, they can think abstractly about the future, but emotionally, they operate under a really dangerous delusion of invincibility. This quote right here sums up the single biggest threat to an adolescent's life, the invincibility fable. It's this deeply held, gut-level belief that they are somehow immune to the consequences that affect everybody else. This isn't about being smart or dumb. It's just a feature of their brain development at this stage. And this chart shows the tragic result of that fable. The top 3 causes of death in this age group are not diseases. They're unintentional injuries, mostly car accidents, followed by suicide and homicide. These are preventative, behavior-related deaths driven by that powerful feeling of, it won't happen to me. So what does this mean for us? The most crucial rule is this: to break through that fable and figure out their real risks, you have to create a safe space. And that means you must interview them without their parents in the room. It is the only way you're going to get honest answers about sensitive topics like drugs, mental health, or sexual activity. Okay, wow, we've traveled all the way from birth to young adulthood, so now let's do a quick, high-yield recap to connect all the dots. This is the must-know cheat sheet for your exams and for your practice. Let's lock this in. For the newborn, the key concept is cold stress, and the top risk is hypoxia. For the infant, it's object permanence, and the top risk is SIDS or suffocation. For the toddler, it's all about autonomy, making poisoning and drowning the big ones. For the preschooler, magical thinking is the concept, and they fear bodily harm as punishment. The school-age child is focused on industry, and the risks shift to accidents, bikes, sports, you name it. And finally, for the adolescent, it's that invincibility fable, which makes motor vehicle accidents the #1 killer. So we'll end with this question. This isn't just a list of facts to memorize. This is a playbook. It lets you see the whole field and predict the next move. The goal of great pediatric nursing isn't just treating what's wrong. It's knowing what's coming next and making sure it never has the chance to happen in the first place.